someone who has a particular background, because there's no substitute for experience and you can't fake it. We've seen for 30 years the numbers games where they will juggle statistics, and they're just made up statistics where the real beneficiaries aren't getting treated. So what you've been talking about is something that ADPAC will articulate on a regular basis, which is transformational policy. And our quagmire is always, how do we put that transformational policy into practice? Well, ladies and gentlemen, you're looking at it. This is a local candidate who is running for a borough that I know very, very well. And in a very short space of time, where you would have ghetto boys and New Cross young men, which is where I grew up, they have a very violent and long history. And the only way to bring initiatives and policies that are going to benefit the local people is by putting transformational policy into place. But you have to look at every single area of life. You have to have a unique understanding that is culturally competent of the local population as well. And then even more importantly, a true desire to solve those problems. So can you give us an idea of what the picture will look like with Gwenton Slowley in local authority in the first 3 months?
So within the first 3 months, one of the first things I pledged to do is this: demand transparency into what has been done, first and foremost, into the investigation of the New Cross fire and Joe Uri's fire in 2018, because I've spoken to the mum recently and she's still waiting for an update. So we're going to demand that, first of all, and be transparent with the community to let them see what response we've got. The next thing which I've said, which I know is going to rumple some people's feathers, is I'm willing to look for a building, first of all, and put some money towards the building and ask for the other councillors in the ward that have been there for a while comfortably to match fund the money that I put up to keep that building open. Then we're going to go to the mayor, Damien Egan, who gets 175,000 a year, to at least give even the £5,000 of his 175,000 to contribute towards that building staying open. That building could become a hub, not only for the elderly people that are stuck in their house, feeling trapped, but also for the young people to come in and get their tuition and their support. And also, if they want counselling and therapeutic support, we have got people in the community that are willing to offer that service. And we will make sure, if everyone contributes, because I'm going to hold them accountable. And also as well, why wouldn't they want to give back to the community if they love the community so much? 175,000. You could at least give back 5,000. So
I hear you, Gwenton. I envisage some small resistance there.
No,
to be frank with you, sir.
But Dean, listen, this is what the people need to see. This is what we called a change of politics now. We're coming to be transparent, to show you who you're voting for. The MPs are getting £70,000 plus expenses. So why can't they contribute a small sum towards the building as a start? That's going to help the community if they really love the people so much. Because,
I agree with you.
Because look,
I will just offer this.
Yeah.
And it's an entrepreneurial look as well. Now, last year after George Floyd's murder, you had a hell of a lot of big corporate companies, KPMGs and the likes, talking about the tens of millions that they were going to dedicate to Black Lives Matter, which we fully know never came to fruition. No problem. Because we have colleagues who are also local authority candidates, when we go collectively for their corporate social responsibility programs, for small offerings like this, and we're talking about properties that are between £20,000 and £40,000 a year in terms of rent, we can look at those collective corporate CSR programs and they can join. For them, it is a feel good, giving back. It is a photographic moment as well. but they know that it's going to the genuine outlet of the people who need it most on the ground. And if that is delivered through local authority candidates such as yourself, then they know that it's going to be used in the correct way. And if a KPMG also choose to audit it and donate that service as well, it'd be fantastic. But it's another way of looking at raising the funding where we do offer our distant cousins the opportunity in terms of corporate CSR. Now, we're on LinkedIn Live right now, and I know that there's a hell of a lot of people that have reached out to me recently that are working with corporate CSR programs that would love to be connected to you and talk about funding local hubs where all of those grassroots organizations, through the public health approach, could collaborate, which is exactly what we speak about as ADPAC. What are your views on that?
I think more streams the better, because enough talking and enough complaining, enough blaming the government, blaming politicians, blaming everyone else.
Yep.
Let's do for self. And
Absolutely.
That's something that I always put out there. And everyone around me, I like everyone to be self-sufficient and not be relying on whether it's state or anyone else. Yeah. So if I'm living like that, I want everyone around me to have that same mindset. And putting on entrepreneurial programs where we're looking at young children drug dealing and living an entrepreneurial lifestyle.
Absolutely.
On the edge, you then use their transferable skills and bring them back in house and show them how to use those skills that they've learned out there in the wilderness in a legal way, where they don't have to worry about getting arrested or their stuff getting taken away from them. And if we're looking, a lot of them already started doing that with the music side. So they're trying to legitimize themselves by transitioning to music. So with all of that corporate responsibility program, I would also invite some of them back in to let them see that there's other alternatives to actually poisoning your own community. So you could go and buy a watch with diamonds in there or drive a flash car. There's other alternatives to doing that. So that's something that I welcome, and we'll look at putting that into best practice.
And I'm glad you brought up the transferable skills, because it's something that me and Nana from Access UK were looking at about 3 years ago with the Road CEO program. Julian Hall is doing it with younger people, which is early intervention with ultra kids, and is really an amalgamation of all of those organizations that are providing the services collaborating. Number one, so you've got a seamless transition from early intervention all the way up to, when we say young people, now we've got to talk about 30, because we know that there's a very strong culture of criminality that is celebrated. The music obviously puts that culture on steroids. And we've seen it in the States, that those who've made the greatest transitions, Jay-Z as a billionaire, 50 Cent now as a TV producer across multiple shows with the biggest deal in TV history, came from a life of dealing drugs. That number one just gave them very quick brains where the synaptics are very connected. And rather than see those potentials wasted or duplicated by those who are less intelligent, less fortunate, who lose their lives, because let's not pretend, me and you both know that all walks of life have laws. Law is an absolute. Red means stop, amber means get ready, green means go. And young people who don't necessarily decide to further their education aren't as committed to learning the rules that are going to sustain you, which is why we want these wraparound programs such as the schools to industry pipeline from 3 to 21, bringing together all of those cross-cutting theme delivery partners that go from early intervention all the way up to university introductions and industry introductions, where they're introduced to mentors, and at every step of the way it is paid backwards, so that mentors who might be doing an internship in a company are enabling university students are enabling those at secondary school to create the path. Those in secondary school who might be prefects are working within the rites of passage organizations, so that we can see a clear pathway from 3 to 21, how to make it from nursery into industry, so that in 24 months time, neither me, you, or anybody else in our community is mentioning the rhetoric of a schools to prison pipeline. Now, if we make that a national initiative, and as councillors we're coming together, as grassroots organisations, as a full consortium, and then bringing that to these corporations with their CSR programs to fund buildings and virtuous programs that are going to add to better British citizens. We never ask for anything as African Caribbeans because we're special. We ask because we pay tax and we're exactly the same. However, you know that organisations like Redfred will come through when there's £1 million contract to be had, and they will gobble up the M, top slice a large majority of that money as what do we call them? Admin fees, and then trickle out the shrapnel to the grassroots organisations who are finding it hard to sustain themselves.